Hello and welcome to the Football Talk Show on the NN podcast with me, Nathan, and of course, Mr. North. And tonight's episode of the Football Talk Show, we're going to be talking about Super Frank Lampard. Well respected, a legend as a player, world class. But as a manager, is he all that cop? Is he really all that he's hyped up to be? Or is it a lot of smoke up his arse? Tonight we're going to delve into that and see if Frank Lampard really is the second coming of Pep Guardiola or if he is just, another AD Boothroyd in the making. So the reason we're talking about this tonight is because last season, Frank Lampard, he got heralded as if he did some kind of incredible job at Chelsea. Now I don't quite agree with that sentiment. I think he didn't do a bad job. I'm not going to say he did bad because he didn't, but I'm not going to say he did good. If I was rating him out of 10, I'll say he did a 5 out of 10. I think Chelsea finished with the points per game at the end of the season. They finished where they should have finished in terms of how many points they, totaled up over the season. And also last season, it was the whole he's bringing through the kids thing like he's some sort of daddy daycare. But he didn't really have a choice because obviously the transfer embargo that he was under. But then fast forward to today, as we sit here today on the 5th of September, it seems like any position where there was a youth player for Chelsea last season, be it a Mount, a Tamori, an Abraham, a Reece James, whatever, he seems to just splash the class and replace them.
He does, yeah, and I'm going to touch on. I'm going to go back 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. So when he was at Derby, and he was hailed as not a great, but as a good manager then. And I must admit, I thought I'll give him some credit. He's done well with a Derby side because at that point in time, the money was a little bit tight at Derby. The cash wasn't really flowing, and to be fair, a lot of people expected Derby to flop. And he managed to pull on his contacts, didn't he? And bring in some of the youngsters, as in Mount, and I think he brought in Tamori at Derby, Harry Wilson, and a few others. And to be fair, they had a fairly good season. They made the playoff final, unlucky to not get promoted. And I thought to myself, yeah, you've not done a bad job there, Frank. Credit where it's due. As a player, he was always likeable. He wasn't really the type of player that was going to rile up an away fan or anything like that. So I was always a fan of him. He then goes to Chelsea, which we didn't kind of see.
Was it on merit? It wasn't really on merit, was it? That appointment.
I think it was reputation.
It was on sentiment as opposed to merit.
Yeah, sentiment's probably the better word to use. Yeah, and Chelsea through and through, and I think they knew. I think Abramovich was clever. I think he was clever because he used Lampard in a way, really, because he knew that last season was potentially going to be a tough one. He knew they couldn't spend money, they couldn't bring in the players that they wanted to bring in, and he knew that the fans could quite easily turn. But he knew also that the fans wouldn't turn if it was Frank Lampard, and he got a free hit. He knew that he had to get last season out of the way. It was a free hit. Whatever happened, the Chelsea fans were going to accept it because it was Frank Lampard. And I think they did. And in the end, they got the Champions League and FA Cup final. So all in all, it wasn't a bad season. And again, he used the young youth side. You got Mason Mount in there. You got Tamori in there. Tammy Abraham, Reece James, Billy Gilmore. There was a lot of players that he was bringing through, and he was getting so much praise. And me included, I thought, fair play to you, Frank. You're bringing in these youngsters. Okay, maybe you've got to a degree. But let's be honest, did he really have to at the time? He got Aspilicueta, he got Kurt Zuma, okay, not great, but experienced. He got Rudiger, he got Alonso, he got Giroud at that point? I think he had got Giroud at that point. They just let Morata go to Atletico Madrid. The midfield, they had the options of Kovacic, Jorginho, Kante. So he didn't have to use these youth players, but he did. And I thought, fair play to you, Frank. You've taken a risk, and so far it's paid off. And I hope, and obviously now we're coming on to the main point. I was hoping Chelsea had probably turned a corner, so to speak. They weren't just relying on the millions and millions in Abramovich's bank, and they were going to use the youth. And then this season comes, and the transfer ban's lifted, and within 2-3 weeks, Lampard starts showing his true colours. And how much has been spent? Probably on the region of nearly 200 million?
Yeah, it's over 200 million, I think, now. With Havertz being confirmed the other day. I think it is. I think that's tipped it to over 200.
Yeah, I think it's poor. I really think it's poor. And I get that there's the pressure there from maybe the board and from and to a degree maybe the fans. They know the ban's been lifted, so go out there and spend the money. We want to get back to the best.
That Hazard money, isn't it? That's what they're trying to spend.
Exactly. Yeah. But he's Frank's kind of managerial kind of ability, so to speak, now is kind of being questioned because he's just chucking cash around. So is he really a good manager?
That's all they all do. It's like we said. It's like we always say. My definition of a good manager, a good coach, is someone who can improve the players that are already there and make them and improve the system they play within. Now, had Frank had the same crop of players he had this season and gone again next season and improved them and got a better league position, you say, yeah, he's a good manager, he's a good coach, he's improved the squad. But that doesn't happen in football anymore. That idea of actually improving what you have has gone out the window. This is what I've got.
Yeah.
The only way I can get better is by spending hundreds of millions of pounds to get in more players. Where you look at someone like a Chris Wilder, for example, who have a lot of that Sheffield United team he had in League One and the Championship, and he's improved them in the system they play. He's improved them as players, improved them tactically, and they now compete in the top half of the Premier League. Could a Guardiola do that with a League One team? Could a Lampard do that with a League One team? Could a Solskjaer do that with a League One team? No, I don't think they could. I think they're too reliant on these big clubs. They're lazy scouting. They're too reliant on just throwing the cash around to solve all their problems. I think that's the main problem. But I do think I want to touch on. I think you made a good point about this season just gone being a free hit, and it would have been a lot easier for the Chelsea fans to potentially stomach a poor season under a Lampard than it would have been under Sarri. I mean, if they were 8th in the league and they sat there losing away to West Ham and they look at the touchline and they see Sarri chewing on tobacco, they're not going to be as forgiving as sitting there seeing Frank, looking sorry for himself. But it's just.
No, I agree. It's a shame because there was a sign that there was a lot of young English and British managers, so to speak, starting to break through. Lampard here at Chelsea, Stevie G over at Rangers. I know Chris Wilder's not young, but he's starting to, a British manager that's that's proven his worth in the Premier League. Brendan Rodgers with ourselves at Leicester. Again, I know he's not young, but again British, and it was nice to see. But I just feel that Lampard's fell into that trap, and he is going to get called a fraud, and rightly so, because he's just going out there splashing the cash. There's no coaching around. It was
because it was the whole premise of him being there was he was going to bring through the kids, and now that's after the first chance he's got to not rely on the youth players or not put the first chance he's had to not trust the Mason Mounts and Tomori's and Abrahams of this world. He's taken that by bringing in Ziyech, Havertz, Werner, Thiago Silva, Ben Chilwell from Leicester. The first chance he's got. I mean, this season he could have really said,
Malang Sarr as well.
This season he really could have said to the lads, right, you did well for me last year. We got in the top 4.
Yeah,
I trust you. We're gonna go again. I trust you. You're my team. You're my starting 11. You could have said to Mason Mount, you're my number 10. You should have said to Tammy, you're my number 9.
Yeah,
I back you. But no, first chance he's got, he's throwing the cash around. And now where does that leave Abraham and Mount and the co on the bench most likely?
Well, you got to remember as well, Tammy Abraham finished Chelsea's top goal scorer in all competitions.
Yeah, a solid return. Solid return.
So that's a real kick in the teeth.
What more could he have done?
Exactly. And you look at some of the goals he scored, and I'd like to say that he's Premier League quality. Okay, is he good enough for Chelsea to push on at this current time? Probably not. But as a young player at Chelsea, they must have seen Lampard come in, and there was all this talk about Lampard was really good with the youth. He was going to start bringing the youth through. Look at what he did at Derby and blah blah blah. And this is basically what this really is a nail on the head and what we're talking about. He was forced to. He was forced to. So in really, Frank Lampard is a fraud because he got no intentions of playing these youth players again.
He doesn't care about Billy Gilmore. Really gets on. He's not putting his arm around Tabby saying you're my number 9. You're going to be number 1 striker for Chelsea. I'm going to help you get into England squad. First chance he's got, he's fucked him off with some German.
And you look at, and again at Derby, like I made a point before. They got no money. They hadn't got a choice. He was left with no choice. He had to work with the youth. At Chelsea, transfer ban, he's got to work with the youth. And at the first opportunity, he gets some money. And I'm not saying he can't spend anything. And I know Chelsea fans we're going to get a backlash. I'm expecting it. And rightly so, maybe. But he gets a bit of money, and fair enough, spend it. I've got no issues with spending some money. We all want, we're crying out ourselves for someone to spend some money. But, build around them young players. Tammy
yeah.
Abraham is a young striker. He's finished your top goal scorer. If you're going to bring in Timo Werner, fair enough, but play him out wide where Willian's just gone. You've just lost. I think Pedro's left and Willian's gone. Play him out wide. Play him around Tammy. You've got Pulisic on the left-hand side, and maybe is it Ziyech from Ajax? Can he play out there? Maybe. Rotate them two, but build around Tammy Abraham. He's a young striker. He's promising. He's again with Mount. Build around him. Don't just completely ditch him and throw him out. And I know a lot of people was kind of saying, but Reece James will probably still get a look in. I don't think he will, because Aspilicueta's club captain.
Chile's came in for 50 million.
Chilwell's just come in for 50 million. So chances are he's going to be second fiddle to both of them. They've also got Marcus Alonso still, I believe. Mm-hmm. So he's not going to be that far down the pecking order. I just think it's poor. I really do. I think it's really poor from Lampard. And whether there's some form of pressure there from maybe the owners or maybe the fans that they want to go on. Chelsea fans are loving it. I see it all over Twitter.
Oh, as soon as Havertz was announced yesterday, it wasn't the next literally 5 minutes later, it was they were tweeting Chelsea, announce Rice, announce X, announce Y. They want the next one. I mean, but that's kind of the culture at Chelsea football clubs, and they're very, very, very. They do like just throw the money around. Like that is the culture of Chelsea, but not only Chelsea, at most of the big clubs.
It always has been.
That is sadly that is football in the modern day. It seems that it's not.
Yeah.
The last team to actually win the league without spending money, we're not going to say it because we're biased, was Leicester.
It was. Yeah,
Every league since has been bought. I mean, I'm not impressed that Liverpool won the league last season. Like, they had the second best squad in England. They're either going to come first or second. What do you want me to do? Blow smoke up Jurgen Klopp's arse because they won it? Like they should have won it. It was either them or City, and City weren't at the races for a large part of the season. So of course Liverpool should have won it. I mean, it's a world record fee for a goalkeeper at the time. World record fee for a centre half. Was it 40 million on Salah, 40 million on Mane? It's 25 on Wijnaldum, more on Fabinho. It's just. I'm not having it.
Yeah, well, like you say, Lampard's slowly falling into that category. And it'll be they're bound to have a good season, aren't they, Chelsea? You don't go and spend 200 million unless the players they brought in are class.
And I mean, maybe we are being a bit premature on Frank. Maybe he's got some plan in his head where he can still fit in the likes of Abraham, Mount, Jane into a
maybe.
But on the surface, we're not Chelsea fans. We don't know the inner workings of the club. We don't know every single formation Chelsea can and might play. And every system. But on the surface, it looks like the positions he's reinforced in are the positions where these young players were in last season. So we're putting 2 and 2 together and saying, well, we're not going to sign Havertz for 80 million and in a 10 and not play him in a 10. No. They're going to fuck off Mason Mount. And also, we touched on this transfer embargo as if Frank was walking into a team of lacking of quality. They still managed to bring in, underneath this embargo, they still managed to fiddle the books a bit. And play a few pre-transfers and get Kovacic in and Pulisic in. 2 world-class footballers, by the way. So they weren't a poor team. These were still a top 4 team. This Chelsea squad was still a top 4 squad. And that's what I'm saying. Points per game, I think the last season in the Sarri, I'm pretty sure they finished 6 points worse off this season, which is about fair enough. Like I said, they brought in Pulisic and Kovacic, but they couldn't strengthen any further. Frank's first season, they were 6 points worse off. Okay, that's why I'm saying it was a 5 out of 10 season. He didn't do well. He just did okay. He was fortunate in the fact that Arsenal were nowhere near for the first half of the season, ended up changing manager. They're fortunate that Spurs were nowhere near, ended up changing manager. United didn't get their arse into gear until after January. And us, Leicester, we couldn't kick a ball straight for 6 months.
Yeah, we collapsed.
So the gateway did kind of open up for them, and they were just consistently okay throughout the whole season. They were never brilliant. They never had a massive dip, and they were never superb. They were just consistently okay, and they finished third. So, but I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up his arse and say he did a fantastic job, because he did not do a fantastic job. What would have been a fantastic job for me is if we would have taken this crop of players, kept them together. A few reinforcements, but kept the core of the team the same, improved the Abraham, improved the Mount, improved the Reece James, improved the Tomori, and they went on next season and challenged, or at least were more competitive. If he would have taken that same squad and made them more impressive next season, I'd say, wow, he's done a really good job. But now, no matter what he does next season, I'm just going to say, well, yeah, what do you expect? He spent 200 million. Like, is it what?
Yeah. Thing is, you can't. How do you judge Lampard now? Because if they go on to have a fantastic season. Is he really that good a coach? Because me or you could go to Chelsea and spend nearly 200 million and buy the players that they've bought and field them every week and get results.
Yeah.
You haven't got to be a tactical masterclass, have you? So how do we judge Lampard now?
Well, that's it. He's sort of in a lose-lose situation, isn't he? Because if he does well, we're going to say, well, it's not him. It's just because you buy good players, you're going to get good results. And if he flops, he's going to go, fucking hell, Frank. You spent 200 million, you can't get them lot to improve what they did.
Yeah.
But that's probably why it's such a hire and fire regime at Chelsea. Why managers don't seem to last so long. They are a very ruthless football club.
Very much so. And the thing is, as well, you look at the back four. We'll just touch on the back four. You could quite easily play Reece James at fullback. Okay, I know you need strength, so you could quite easily play Reece James at fullback. Aspilicueta's, second fiddle, a bit of experience. You could quite easily play Tomori alongside Rudiger. Rudiger, German international, good centre half, experienced. Tomori will learn no end off him. He'll learn so much. And then you've got Chilwell. Okay, they've just bought Chilwell. I've got no qualms with that because I don't rate Marcus Alonso personally. No. I think he's very, very suspect.
He was a Conte player, wasn't he? Alonso.
Yeah, not bad going forward. In a wing back formation, I think he's okay, but I think in a back four, he's very suspect. So okay, I can accept the Chilwell signing. And then you've got the midfield three, and again, you could easily play Mason Mount alongside Kante and Kovacic, or quite easily. You don't need to spend 70, 80 million on Havertz.
You still got Barker, by the way. You still got Barker.
And you've still yeah. So you don't need to do it. You've got Mason Mount, young. Okay, is he as good as Havertz? I don't know. I don't know a great deal about it.
Havertz kid.
I don't know.
And the Bundesliga isn't the strongest. Outside your top 2-3 teams, your Leipzig, your Dortmund, the Bundesliga is not the strongest.
No. So have they just brought in an 70, 80 million midfielder that's probably just as good as Mason Mount, or if not, maybe a little bit better, but Mason Mount can still improve. And then obviously you've got your front three, and let's not forget we've not mentioned Hudson-Odoi. No. Where does he stand?
He was the hottest prospect in English football, if you believe the media 12 months ago. They couldn't get out his arsehole. They're all over him.
So where does he stand in all this now? He's like fourth or fifth down the pecking order. So as a young player, you see Frank Lampard come in, and he welcomes you with open arms. And he's, and he preaches his philosophy to you, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and you buy into it. Now what are they thinking? Now you're thinking, well, thanks a lot, Frank. We've kind of been used for a season, and you've gone out and spent 200 million and pretty much dropped us down the pecking order. So now what for us? I think he's lost a bit of credibility in all honesty.
Maybe not from Chelsea fans, but from I say we're not Chelsea fans. So what we're saying Chelsea fans could be listening to it with really good counter arguments. We're just looking at it from an outsider. We're as Leicester fans from an outside club perspective. What's going on at Chelsea? As English, English people, fans of the English national team as well. We're not overly thrilled to see that Frank's just completely binned off a lot of young English talent.
No. I was starting to. I've never been a fan of Chelsea because the way they operate.
No, the way
this chop and change manager. This chop and change manager system that Abramovich likes to use. You win an FA Cup, but sorry, you didn't get to the Champions League final. You're out. I don't like that. I don't agree with it at all. I think a lot of clubs are going that way, but that's for another day. So I started to warm towards Chelsea a little bit last season because of the way Frank was operating, the players he was bringing in, the faith he was showing in them. But again, like we've said many times, as soon as the transfer ban gets lifted, he's just gone absolutely
hell for leather,
happy clapper, hell for leather, and he's going to get labelled with that fraud tag. And in my opinion, as we sit here today on the 5th of September, he is a fraud. There's no doubt about it. He is a fraud, and it's as simple as that. And Chelsea fans, by all means, if you want to give us within good reason as to why you feel you need to spend 200 million, throw it in the comment section. Let us know. In my opinion, I don't think you needed to go that in. I don't think you needed to chuck that much sort of money.
They needed a new keeper.
I do rate.
They needed a new keeper.
They did, and I do rate some of the signings. I do like I think the Timo Werner signing's not a bad signing because he can play out wide. So I do think that was a very good signing. I do think that the as much as I hate to say it from our lot, Chilwell, is he 50 million?
Thiago
I doubt
Silva?
it, but again, I can understand it. I don't know. I don't think they need him. A 35-year-old, for God's sake. what's he got that Rudiger's not at the moment?
Payday, isn't it? Really, I can see him being a bit suspect in the Premier League. Thiago Silva, I can see him getting found out a bit.
35 years old.
I can see him struggling.
Why bring in a 35-year-old that's going to be on whopping amount of money? Because he will. He hasn't come over here for a flipping, for a cheap payday, has he? He's going to demand some money. Why bring him in when you've got Tomori? Okay, I'm not comparing Tomori to Thiago Silva. I'm not. But you've got Tomori there that's willing to learn. He's young and he's only going to get better. Yet you're happy to pay that sort of money for a 35-year-old. I know he's coming on a free, but it's just a signing you didn't need to make. And again, another reason as to where you can discredit Frank. I just think he's losing all credibility as a manager. He's falling down that slippery slope, like your Peps, like your Klopps.
Well,
I don't really want to compare him to Solskjaer because I think Solskjaer has shown a lot of faith in the youth.
I'll tell you something that I noticed the other day regarding Manchester United, and it was the other week when they got knocked out by Seville in the semi-final of the Europa League. And after the game, they had Paul Ince and Paul Scholes in the studio. And after the game, all they said was all they said about going forward for Manchester United, what they got to do, what Man United got to do. There was no such thing, there was not even a mention of coaching, training, improving the players. It was just, they need to sign Sancho, they need to sign X, and that was it. That was how do Man United improve? Nothing to do with what Solskjaer can do on the training ground with the players he's got. It was, we must spend 120 million on Sancho. We must spend X amount on this player. And of course, now they bought in Van der Beek as well. So what does that do to the likes of McTominay and co?
Yeah.
And Daniel James. It's the way football's going, isn't it? It's just, and it's
you buy success.
That's how the big six stay the big six.
And managers get a lot of credit for being these. Pep's one of them, isn't it? Pep's probably the worst. In fact, he gets a lot of credit for how he manages certain players, apparently. So I don't buy into it personally myself at all. But Pep's probably one of the worst. You look at the clubs he's managed, and I don't want to go off topic slightly, but you look at the clubs he's managed, and he's Bayern
Best
Munich,
in the world
Barcelona, Man
Munich,
City.
Yeah. Bayern Munich streaks ahead of any team in Germany. Couldn't do it in Europe. Man City, for a couple of years, were streaks ahead of anyone in England and couldn't do it in Europe. And look how much money he spent on his fullbacks and his back four. I remember when Pep came in. I remember this very distinctively. When Pep first came in, there was all this hype about John Stones and how Pep Guardiola was going to change John Stones into Piqué, and how Adrian Durham was saying on TalkSport, "We've got to give John Stones the England captaincy and build the team around him." Fuck off. Is Pep that good? Because has John Stones done any? I feel like John Stones has gone backwards, if anything.
And that's the question we're asking, isn't it? Really, is Frank Lampard really that good a manager?
Coach, yeah.
And
coach, manager, yeah.
Or a coach, yeah. Is he really that good? Because, like you say, he had a great opportunity this year to bring in maybe 2 or 3 players to strengthen the squad, and they needed to. Yeah, I get that.
Keeper.
I'm not saying they had to
they
go.
Lost Willian,
I'm not saying
they lost Pedro.
Yeah, they didn't have to go into this season without signing a player for Lampard to get any credit. I'm not saying that. What they didn't need to do was to go and spend the money that they have done and brought in players in the positions that they just didn't need. Okay, bring in a backup centre-half. Thiago Silva's not a backup centre-half. Not for 1 minute. He will start week in, week out. There's no way he's a backup. Kurt Zouma's probably not good enough. So, yeah, I get that. They probably need to bring a centre-half in. And I do understand why they maybe have brought Chilwell in, as I've said, because left-back, they weren't the strongest. Alonso was a starter. I don't think there was anyone else really in there. Aspilicueta on the right is not getting any younger. Maybe Reece James, but again, on the right-hand side, you got James and Aspilicueta, haven't you? And Aspilicueta is not getting any younger. So I can understand the left-back. Can't understand the Kai Havertz signing. Not for 1 second. I don't get it at all. It just makes no sense to me. You've got Mason Mount, young English midfielder that created chances last year and scored goals, yet you've just completely thrown him out of the equation because you brought in some 70, 80 million pound centre midfielder that's going to start. You don't pay 70, 80 million pounds on a player to not start him. It don't happen. It just doesn't happen. And Ziyech, again, on the left-hand side, did they need him as such? I don't know. That's questionable. And the Timo Werner signing, like I've just said to you, I do rate that signing. He can play on the wings and up top, so I do get that. But I just, and the others, they brought in Malang Sarr, haven't they? So
I think
you've
he's
got
going back. I think
Thiago
he's going back
Silva.
out on loan next summer.
Or was he going back out on
Apparently,
loan?
I think it's just it's
So
the
who else
whole. I
have they
think it's
brought
just the
in?
whole bigger picture, isn't it? Really, as opposed to the individual. It's just the whole bigger picture of money buying success. And I think if you're a fan
Yeah,
outside the top six, if you're a Leicester fan or you're a fan of any of the,
yeah,
it's the bigger picture. It's not who's going to play where as such. I know we've mentioned that. But it's just the whole idea of the only way to be successful in football now is to spend astronomical amounts of money. That is the
yeah.
only way you can be successful, and that's the only way Man United stay on top, Liverpool stay on top, Chelsea stay on top is by signing the best players in the world for large sums of money.
Yeah, and it's a shame, really. It really is.
It
And
kills the competition. Like, look, how's any team supposed to bring to the top? Like, we're Leicester fans. We've been knocking on the door of the top six for a few years now. Every year we lose one of our best players to the top
mm,
six. How's the team
yeah,
supposed to break into the top six when as soon as they start to threaten that top six
mm.
on a permanent basis, they just get picked apart?
And like you've just said, it's lazy scouting from Chelsea, isn't it? You can't tell me that Frank Lampard has picked a gem out. What gem? You look at all them players; they are all well known in their respective leagues
Internationals.
and
Yeah.
internationals, and performed at a high level. Timo Werner, banging goals in for fun, wasn't it in Germany?
Yeah.
Ziyech, who's at Ajax,
Really good in the
well
Champions League
known,
run the other year.
really good in the
Yeah.
Champions. Exactly. You've only got to sit and watch him on TV to know his quality.
Thiago Silva,
Havertz,
German
Thiago
international.
Silva.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're telling me Frank's gone and watched Thiago Silva and thought, do you know what? We found a jet. No chance. It's lazy scouting. You're picking the players from the smaller sides, not necessarily smaller sides, but you're picking players from a squad and you're just chucking money at them.
Yeah.
There's no scouting in
No,
that.
no.
It's the football at the moment. As much as I love watching it, and I'm gonna sound like a real big hypocrite. It's sickening to watch. It really is. It's sickening to watch because the top six have got no credit about them at all.
No.
You cannot credit any of the top six. You can give them credit for the football they play, by all means.
Well, they have the best players though.
Yeah, you can't sit there like you could maybe 10, 15 years ago and say, they've built a really good side there. You like Ferguson back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Built a very good side. Arsene Wenger, okay, they still spent money. I know they did. But Cristiano Ronaldo is a perfect example. Raw, completely unknown, playing for Lisbon, looked no way. He didn't fit the football stereotype, did it? He looked rugged as anything. Ferguson's brought him in. They've quite obviously done their own work on him, and look at him now. One of the best players, if not the best player in football at the moment. You don't get that anymore.
I think the only
none of the top sides do that anymore.
They bring an FFP to try but the FFP thing that just stops clubs like Leicester breaking into the top six because obviously we don't generate as much money in terms of sponsorship or revenue as
Let's not kid ourselves here.
As those clubs. So how can we compete with them on a transfer basis? It's like FFP
Exactly.
is there to keep the hierarchical structure of football the way it is,
100%.
with the top clubs being the top clubs. And the days of, as much as I don't like Forest or Derby, the days of clubs coming from the lower divisions and really challenging are gone. They're gone, until they bring in a wage cap or something, a transfer, and it is about scouting young players or finding hidden gems and actual genuinely improving the players you've got. It's just football's gone.
It is, and I don't think it's ever going to improve. And like we've just said, let's not kid ourselves. FFP's been brought in for one reason and one reason only. And who are we to question the ongoings behind the FA and whatever else? But it's quite obvious, isn't it? The top six generate money from sponsorships, from
revenue,
shirt sales, revenue all around the world. Wolves. Do you think you'll ever find Wolves fans over in the likes of, let's say, China and places like that? You won't. So Man United, global, it's massive. So, same with Man City, same with Chelsea.
That's one thing about
you
the
go down.
Six,
You go down a side, no, completely off topic, but you go down a side street in Mallorca and you look at the first six football shirts you'll come across. It'll be the top six in the Premier League.
Probably, yeah.
So, okay, they're fake, so that's besides the point.
Real Madrid,
but my point being, these top six sides are global and they make so much money that FFP is irrelevant. It doesn't even affect them.
And even when it does, they get out of it. Look at City. I mean, on the defensive budget, they spent.
Money talks.
I know we've gone off topic on Frank now because Frank is a symptom of the larger issue, but Frank seemed like he might be the exception to the rule last season when he came in It seemed like he might be, and that's why we're sort of digging out Frank here, because he's English. We do like Frank as a player. He was very good. He was very inoffensive as a person as well. Never did anything really to rile anyone up. But
comes across well in the media.
It's just he seemed the exception to the rule of a big club actually, coaching players, improving youngsters, making them better players. Well, it doesn't happen, does it now? Young players go to clubs like Leicester, they improve, and then they get snapped up by the big clubs like Van Dijk. Went to Southampton, improved, snapped up. Kante came to Leicester, improved, put himself on the world stage, snapped up, and it's just boring. I remember at the end of last season when Chelsea and Man United got into the top 4 ahead of us, and I tweeted out just some snoring emojis. So I was like, Man United, Chelsea, Man City, and Liverpool are in the Champions League next season. It's like, well, great. Like, what's new?
Yeah,
it's just
same old story.
Boring. It really is boring.
That is pretty much all we've got time for, everybody. We could carry on. We could go on and on and on and on. But, the point we've tried to get across is fair play to you, Frank. You used the youth last season, but you've shown your true colours. And in my opinion, the money that you've spent, you will come across as a fraud. Yeah. And if you carry on the way you're going, you will become a fraud, and you're just going to be a poor man's Pep Guardiola.
You're just another one. You're just confining to the rule that money buys success, and no matter how good you are, you're not going to get any credit now for what you do this season at Chelsea. And you have to challenge.
No,
you have to challenge. No, if you're not up there, I'm going to call you a shit manager. Not that you bothered, but.
So on that bombshell, we are going to leave you. It's been a fantastic podcast tonight. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed venting some frustration after seeing the numerous tweets about all these players Chelsea are linked with and the money that we spent. Some will probably call us bitter, but I'll take it on the chin.
Dead.
I'm not coming. So anyway, thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure as always. Drop a comment in the section below. Join in with the discussion. We want to hear your thoughts. Chelsea fans, let us know what you're really feeling. Are you enjoying these signings? Is the money being thrown around something that you want to see more of, or would you have preferred Frank to maybe just mix the youth in with the new guys? Until next time, it's been a pleasure, chaps.